All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little video as we come to you live from Scottsdale, Arizona, the site of our spring training trip. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, two locations right now, Emeryville and Corte Madera, third on the way in 2026 in Petaluma. Check them out. Go get some barbecue, talk to Damon and Mary, tell them Krug sent you. And our spring training trip, of course, brought to you by our good friends at the Alomar Marina. That's right, voted best lunch spot in Sacramento. Sacramento sports fans game day destination. Alomar Marina, the best kept secret in Sacramento. Alomar Marina, great marina, I should say. Great eats, great atmosphere, great vibes, great food. If you'd like to float on the river as you have lunch or breakfast, you're going to love Alomar Marina, voted Sacramento's favorite 14 different times. Check out their website, alomarmarina.net. They're open Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. They're at 5999 Garden Highway. Try the shrimp tacos. And thanks to Alomar Marina for sponsoring the Krug Show. And also, of course, thanks to Novato Chevrolet. And we'll talk about them in a second. But let's get into our video because very interesting stories breaking today on the 49ers from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, who had a couple of really interesting notes. The first one is he says Romeo Doubs and Jalon Naylor of the Vikings are good fits for the 49ers, according to Jeremy Fowler. Now, it's interesting. You'd say, well, what do the Niners really need at wide receiver? Well, the first thought is they need speed. But when you look at, they've said goodbye to Debo, they've said goodbye to Ayuk, they've said goodbye. They probably are going to wind up getting priced out for Juwan Jennings. And the only guys they do have are Cowing and Pearsall and Watkins and Demarcus Robinson. They actually have the speedy guy. Now, those guys haven't done anything, but they actually have the speed. What they lack is the guy who can actually, the continuity piece, the in-breaking route guy. They're going to miss Juwan Jennings. They're going to miss Brandon Ayuk. They still have never replaced Debo. So between those two names, I like Naylor. Interesting player, 5'11", 190-pound wide receiver, ran in the 4.5s, Michigan State guy, 29 receptions this year on 53 targets. So he caught 55% of his targets for 499 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's 26 years of age. Okay, I don't mind Naylor. I think he's all right. But Doubs to me is the far better choice. Doubs, on the other hand, he's 6'2", 205 pounds, played collegiately at Nevada. And I just think he's durable. If you look at the last 3 years, he's played 13, 17, and 16, 13, and 17 games over the last 3 seasons. This year, he caught 55 balls on 85 targets. So instead of a 55% target share, or I should say ratio of targets to catches, his is 65%. So that's better. He catches more balls. He had more yards, 724 yards, 6 touchdowns. To me, this is a guy who you can lean on. Many of his catches went for first downs and touchdowns. He's a chain mover. He's durable. He's got better size. And I think overall, if it came down to Naylor or Doubs, I definitely like the idea of Romeo Doubs. Now, we'll talk a little bit about what the Niners need at receiver. But as I just said, the only guys they have under contract are guys that can run. They don't have, Pearsall, Cowing, Watkins, and Demarcus Robinson combined last year for 63 touches. Those 4 receivers combined for 63 touches. So whoever the Niners bring in at receiver had better be a volume receiver. And I don't think that Naylor is, but I think Romeo Doubs is. The other guy that definitely is, and he'll be a very expensive free agent, but one that has been heavily rumored for the Niners, and that's Mike Evans. Mike Evans he's got his own list of things that he wants. He wants to play with a good quarterback. Check. Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. He wants to play with a good offensive coordinator. Check. Kyle Shanahan's offense that last I checked worked. He wants to play on a Super Bowl contender. Well, if he comes here, maybe the Niners are a Super Bowl contender. And he wants to get the ball a lot. And you know what? This is the kind of volume receiver that maybe in the past would not have worked out or wouldn't have been a good fit for the Niners because they had so many other weapons. But look at this year. The 49ers badly need somebody who's going to catch 80 to 90 balls. Kittle could be out for the year. As I mentioned, Debo gone, Ayuk gone, JJ could be gone. Pearsall's never healthy, maybe traded. The other guys are all just projectable, athletic wide receiver prospects. Nobody's got any real production to their name at the NFL level. So it's wide open. They need a receiver to come in and make plays. I loved what I saw out of Ted Hurst, by the way, at the combine. But, rookie receivers take time, and FCS rookie receivers, especially, usually take a lot of time. So if the Niners want to spend north of $20 million, Mike Evans, I think, would be a great option for them. Yes, he's older, but man, I think he could catch 80, 90 balls in this offense. Now, let's talk a little bit about their options, because Fowler also mentioned that, this is the other note that he had. In addition to saying that Romeo Doubs and Jalon Naylor might be good fits for the 49ers, Jeremy Fowler of ESPN says the 49ers are, quote, are a sneaky contender for free agent D linemen and wide receivers. So let's talk about that for a second. And before we do, we should tell you we are brought to you by Novato Chevrolet. Our sponsor of our spring training trip is Novato Chevrolet. Go say hi to Daniel Corral. He's the man to go see. He'll get you a screaming deal. Tell him that Krug sent you. Novato Chevrolet. They've been in that location there in Novato for a long, long time, decades. The owner, Gus, is a tremendous guy, and we'll be promoting them for the next few months. So go check that out. As I said, Daniel Corral, very good sales guy, great guy. He's the man to go to. Tell him that Krug sent you, and he will give you a screaming deal. So thanks to Novato Chevrolet for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, let's talk a little bit about the wide receivers available in the free agent market. Once again, do the Niners, on first blush, you'd say the Niners need a speed threat, maybe Tutu Atwell, right? Something like that. But yes, they need big playability. Yes, they need some speed. But if they don't have Jennings and they don't have Kittle, and they don't, Debo's moved on and Ayuk's gone, how are they going to move the chains? Yes, they need the explosive receiver to give them big playability, but without Jennings and Kittle, you need somebody to move the chains or you're going to have a terrible offense. So they got to think of a continuity type receiver, a veteran receiver with good ball skills who likes to catch the in-breaking routes. Let's go through the free agent list. I'm going to give you some names that I think make a lot of sense. One is Evans. All right. Evans is a tremendous player. He fits for all the reasons we mentioned before, but you're going to have to go north of 20 million. And how much does he have left in the tank? That's really the question. I think he's got a lot left in the tank, to be honest. The question is, how much do you have to pay him? Then there's Christian Kirk, who, got paid a lot by Trent Baalke in free agency a few years ago. He's always been able to run, but he's more of a go threat, vertical threat. He's not really the kind of guy that's going to catch 8, 9, 10 balls in a game. So he's not necessarily a great fit, but he is a veteran, healthy, vertical threat wide receiver who can also run routes and play all the three spots. So, Kirk is interesting. Here's a name that I like. I like Jahan Dotson, who started off at Penn State, went to the Commanders, traded to the Eagles, has never really been given an opportunity to sat behind McLaurin, couldn't get it rolling. Yeah, lots of young receivers struggle initially. Then he went to Philly. They've got great receivers. He got caught up in a numbers game. I think you put Jahan Dotson with a good quarterback on a good offense, and I think he's got 3 real productive years coming up. He's got tremendous ball skills, catches everything around him. Even though he's small, he can run the in-breaking routes. So Dotson, to me, is a cheap bargain of a free agent possession receiver. Not the biggest guy, not the fastest guy, but great hands, and Brock Purdy would be a huge fan. Another guy to keep an eye on, Wan'Dale Robinson. I mentioned this to Dieter. Dieter's like, he's not a scheme fit. Well, you know what? This guy's caught 90-plus balls the last couple of years, and they need a volume receiver. And this guy's running, has operated in different offenses with the Giants than he did in college at Kentucky. And I'll take my shot on Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he could definitely, the Niners have such a wasteland of opportunity. They've got no depth at receiver with anybody established, that a guy like Wan'Dale could come in here and become one of the NFC's better receivers overnight, just because of the number of balls that will come his way. Alec Pierce is out there, but he's a $30 million receiver. I think that it goes beyond their price tag. If they're looking to go super cheap and show everybody how smart they are, Derek Young, who played, I believe, at Lenore Ryan. I forget exactly which school he was at. It was a small school, but he's been a special teamer for John Schneider and Mike McDonald and the Seattle Seahawks. And he's a big receiver who can play special teams, and he's a backup, but he's got talent. I'm telling you, Tariq Young has got some talent. He hasn't played hardly at all in Seattle, but that would be kind of a sneaky under the radar pick. Doubs is the one I think that makes the most sense. If you said, which receiver makes the most sense? I think it's Doubs because he's a chain mover and yet he's got downfield ability. I think there's a possibility he would sign because he played collegiately at Nevada. I think he was underutilized at Green Bay and got caught up in a numbers game this last year. I think he can, you look at his target share this year, he caught 65% of the targets thrown to him, but he also had 55 receptions on 85 targets. I think the Niners could get him and target him well over 100 times and get him closer to 75, 80 receptions on the year. So I like Doubs in this offense, and I think Doubs would be the receiver that I would look for. And once again, you got to have, you can't just go for the speedy guy who makes 2 catches a game. You've got to have that chain mover because your receivers right now, if the season started today, are Pearsall, Cowing, Watkins, and Demarcus Robinson. So you got to have some big physical receiver that can run those in-breaking routes and make some tough catches in traffic. And I think of all the guys on this list, I'd probably go with Mike Evans. But if you factor in age and cost, I think I would go with Romeo Doubs. All right, let's talk a little bit about part 2 of Jeremy Fowler's report, which is the Niners may be looking for, there's a sneaky contender for free agents along the defensive line. And there's a lot of talk that the Niners would like to improve their interior defensive line. And he threw out John Franklin Myers from Tennessee, who's playing for the Denver Broncos, who's a hell of a player. There's no question about it. And to me, if you said, who are the best interior rush free agents, it's John Franklin Myers for Denver. It's Sheldon Rankins for the Texans. Those are the 2 guys. I mean, you could say Calais Campbell. He's still playing at a really high level, but I think those are the interior guys in the free agent market that you quickly think of. And I think you're going to pay a pretty high price for Sheldon Rankins. You're going to pay a really high price for John Franklin Myers. So who are 2 lower price defensive tackles that also do rush the passer? Because look what you have. You have Collins, you have West. They can stuff the run, but they don't rush the passer. You got to have that pass rushing interior player. Who's in free agency that could fit that description? Well, I just gave you the top 2 guys, John Franklin Myers, Sheldon Rankins, right? Those are the top 2 guys. But 2 guys under the radar that I think are going to be cheaper, David Onyemata, who just played for Raheem Morris with Atlanta. Onyemata is a really underrated pass rusher, always has been. With the Saints all those years, he's a veteran, but he knows how to do it. And, when you have young Collins and young West, maybe a veteran pass rusher might be exactly what the doctor ordered. So I love Zane Durant in the draft. We've talked about that from Penn State, but man, David Onyemata would not be a bad option for them as an interior rusher. Another guy that I liked him in college. Tampa Bay took him, Jason Licht. Logan Hall, from Houston, who's 6'6", about 290. He's kind of angular. He's more of a rusher than he is a run defender. But I like him as a complement to West and Collins. He's not the run defender they are, but he is a very, very good interior rusher. So Onyemata and Logan Hall, I think, would be the 2 names after John Franklin Myers and Sheldon Rankins. And then the wild card is Calais Campbell, who just continues to play amazing football. Now, he said the Niners are looking for defensive line free agents. I just went through defensive tackles because I think it's probably the tackle spot they're looking for, but they could be looking for edge guys. And the 2 names that are most quickly bandied about outside of Trey Hendrickson, who's, the pick of the litter in the free agent market, are Joey Bosa, who had a really good year in Buffalo, and Odafe Oweh, who was a fantastic player with the Ravens and then got traded from Harbaugh's Ravens to Harbaugh's Chargers. And wow, Oweh was a monster down the stretch. He really looked great in that Charger line. And there's a lot of teams that are going to come bidding on Odafe Oweh. So those are the premier guys. If you're looking for a premier free agent, if the Niners are going to shop on the top shelf, maybe Trey Hendrickson, maybe Joey Bosa, maybe Odafe Oweh. Now there's other guys. There's Joe Asai. There's Azeez Ojulari. There's Kingsley Enagbare from Green Bay. These are all intriguing names to me. But I'll say this, the two under the radar, kind of lower cost edge guys, let's say you can't afford OA. The Bosas rarely take a pay cut. So let's say you can't afford Joey Bosa and you can't afford a Dafe Owe, but you still want to add a defensive end. Arnold Ebiketie, who just played for Raheem Morris. I'd love to know what Raheem thinks of Ebiketie, who was a speed rusher at Penn State and, got caught up in a numbers game in a pretty deep Atlanta rush this last year, but Ebiketie can do it. He's definitely better than what the Niners have. Ebiketie would be a major upgrade for the Niners, and I don't think he would cost you a ton. The other one that I really love, and this is a way to kind of chip away at what Seattle has, Boye Mafe. The one interesting note from Lynch coming out of the beginning of the combine was that, hey, you know what? We like Raheem Morris. Why do we like him? Well, we're thinking about some 5-man fronts. We're thinking about some different size rushers. We're thinking about changing things up and being a little bit more multiple and a little bit more complex up front and not giving teams a simplicity look that they can, plan around as much as throw a bunch of different things at them so they don't know what look and what rushers are coming from where and when. It's easier said than done, but it also is predicated on having good players, especially off the edge. And two guys that make a lot of sense. One would be Ebiketie, but the other would be Boye Mafe, because Mafe would take a big-time explosive edge piece away from Seattle. I love his twitch. I love his first step. I love his get-off. I think Mafe in the wide 9 would be a double-digit sack guy. So those would be the guys I would look for. If you're looking for a receiver in free agency, maybe Romeo Doubs. And I agree with Fowler on that one. I'm not a big fan of Naylor, but I like Doubs. If the Niners are indeed looking for a free agent defensive lineman, they're going to dabble in that area. The fans will call for Trey Hendrickson and Joey Bosa and Adafe Owe and John Franklin Myers and Sheldon Rankins. And those are all great names, and I'd love all of them. But the more reasonable guys, I think, at those spots, David Onyemata and Logan Hall inside, Arnold Ebiketie and Boye Mafe outside. So there you go. A little breakdown on stuff coming out of the combine. Little rumors connecting the 49ers to the offseason that lies ahead. Jeremy Fowler is a good source. He seems to be pretty plugged in. And we shall see what the Niners are going to do. I think they'll be more active than they were last year, but not as active as maybe some of their fans want to see them be in the first couple of days of free agency. So once again, thanks to Novato Chevrolet. Go say hi to David Corral. He'll give you a great deal. Novato Chevrolet, a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, the great Anthony Catania, also chipping in to send us to spring training. Thanks to our title sponsor, of course, Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And if you're up in Sacramento, check out Alomar Marina, 5999 Garden Highway. There are links in the description for all of our sponsors. And thanks to you guys for supporting the Krug Show from Scottsdale. And we'll have more coming up tomorrow. We'll take in more baseball. We'll have a few more videos. But we got another day here in Scottsdale, and we hope you're enjoying it. And once again, the links are in the description for all of our sponsors. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.